Hi, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.wordpress.com. Back again to do my pull list review, this time for the second... I was right. My brain got scrambled there for a second. For the second half of the June comics that I read, which includes all of these, but I'm not going to talk about all of those comics. I'm just going to talk about a handful. I'm going to highlight some of the titles that I read in the second half of June. Most of which are either number ones or the end of the series, with a couple exceptions. But I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm finally well enough after my surgery to do this. I would have normally have done this. I would have released this review a couple weeks ago. Well, yeah, a couple weeks ago. But last week, at the time of the recording of this video, I had to have some surgery done to repair some things that were that needed repair, which is what happens when you start to get as old as I am. So you might hear it in my voice still. I'm still feeling a little weak, but I'm getting better, and that's what counts. If I can only actually drive around a little bit and walk around a little bit more, I'd feel a lot better. I've been cooped up in my house essentially for almost a week, and for the first 3 days after the surgery, I was in bed the whole time. It was horrible. But I did manage to read some comics while I was bedridden and recuperating. But anyway, that's all done. Let's get to the comics. Let's see. First up, I have here Age of Ultron number 10. So the end of the Age of Ultron event. Wow, how disappointing was this? I should preface this for the things that I'm going to be talking about. I should remember to do this at the beginning of the video instead of after I've already started talking about the comics. But anyway, spoilers may come if you haven't read these comics yet or you're waiting for the trade. So be forewarned, I may talk about specific plot points or reveals that you may not want to hear. So anyway, moving on. Age of Ultron, like I said, how disappointing. This series, I was so looking forward to this series, and I may have mentioned that on a previous video. It's written by Brian Michael Bendis, whose writing I generally like for the most part. It features Ultron, which is one of my favorite villains in the Marvel Universe, but this was it went on too long. It was the level of graphic violence, the deaths of so many characters, and the way that they died I found distasteful. And then we get to the plot. The time travel plot points where they go, where Wolverine and Sue Storm go back in time to kill Hank Pym so that they can prevent the creation of Ultron in the first place. Well, that doesn't go very well, these things never do. So they have to go back in time again, and it just it wasn't a very good time travel story. Let's just put it that way. Although it was kind of funny to see Hank Pym reacting to the appearance of Wolverine and Sue Storm in his lab before he creates Ultron, and then just the sheer terror and fear, just the realization that he's going to die at the hands of Wolverine. Anyway, again, nothing really happens because of the whole time travel thing, except at the end. During the story, Iron Man tells Wolverine, you can't keep going back in time to correct things because the fabric of time can be destroyed or damaged in some unforeseen way, but things are so bad that Wolverine does it anyway, and he ends up, as we see in the final issue, there's this ripple or the effects of a tear in time, if you will. I'm not sure exactly what happens, but something happens. And ostensibly all we really see is that Angela from the Spawn universe ends up in the Marvel Universe, and that Galactus ends up moving into the Ultimate Marvel Universe. And so there are some miniseries and dealing with that. The Hunger miniseries, which was, and I complained about this in one of my complaint videos, that Marvel initially solicited this Hunger thing as Age of Ultron related, and it comes out of Age of Ultron, but it made it seem like it was a direct tie-in to the Age of Ultron miniseries, and it turned out to be something else, and I just didn't like that. Anyway, I ended up not getting it. What does this mean for the Marvel Universe as a whole? I'm not sure yet. No one is. Does it really matter at this point? I don't think so, because we have Infinity coming, and that seems to be the next thing where Marvel is like, hey, this Infinity will change the universe. Well, that's what they say all the time, right? Anyway, disappointing. Age of Ultron, for the most part. It could have been, I think it should have been, maybe 4 or 5 issues, 6 at most. But there you go. I wasted that much money on it. What came out of it, though, here's one of those tie-in issues, Age of Ultron. This is book 10 AI. So this is the prelude, if you will, to the Avengers AI series that's coming out. And this story features Hank Pym very heavily, and I really enjoyed it. This is written by Mark Waid, and which explains why I enjoyed it so much, because it focuses on character of Hank Pym and giving his past and how he grew up and his scientific curiosity when he was very young, and how they tried to certain people, as he was going to school, try to direct him in a certain direction, and he wasn't liking it. And anyway, he discovers Pym particles and all that stuff. I really enjoyed this. Not enough, though, to get me to jump on board the Avengers AI series, but I thought this was a nice, one of the better written, if you will, Age of Ultron tie-ins, I guess. So there's that. Next up, from DC, we have Batman Superman #1 by Greg Pak, Jay Lee, and I believe it's Ben Oliver is doing half the book, or where's the damn credits page? Yeah, Ben Oliver is doing a certain part of the back end of the book, which I understand why they're doing it that way, because, again, here's the spoilers, possibly. Or probably not. If you read the solicitation to either issue 1 or 2 of this series, you know that a certain amount of the story, this initial story, is on Earth 2. And so there's a point where our Superman, ends up on Earth 2. And that's where the different artist comes in. I much prefer Jay Lee doing this book. I hope that they don't continue the different artists aspect of this, although I can see them doing that for this first story where things are set on a different Earth. But really the best part about this issue is basically the first 3 to 5 pages. The first 3 pages, really, where Clark Kent is coming to Gotham City to pursue a story, and he goes into this park where he finds these kids bullying another child. They referred to him as Mohammed, as it says here, "Where's your camel, Mohammed?" And the kid responds, "My name is Zach." And so they're bullying him based on how he looks. His sister's there with the headscarf, I believe, and so there's that. But what's really interesting about this is Bruce Wayne's dialogue here. Bruce is, and you can kind of see, there's, other side, Eric. Here, let's try this. There we go. There's Bruce Wayne sitting on the park bench watching this all unfold. So he says, "But this kid's tougher than I was. He's thinking about it now, seconds away from changing everything." And then Bruce says, "Do it. fight back. Be the tough guy. Take care of yourself. And then Clark Kent, in his usual Boy Scout, I have to help everybody way. But mature adult thing to do is you step in before kids get hurt, right? Which Bruce doesn't approve, obviously. Anyway, he chases the kids off. Of course, Bruce tells him that they'll be back tomorrow, probably to beat the kid up even harder the next day. But just that interaction between Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, and that's what drew me to this series anyway. Was this series is supposed to chronicle the early encounters between these two characters, and as has been said in the Justice League title, that it was revealed that Batman and Superman have worked together outside of the Justice League and before the Justice League came to be. So it's really interesting, the New 52 universe. I'm more interested in what came before the 5-year start, where we're 5 years into the DCU at the New 52. I want to know what happened before that point, or early on in the history of this new DC universe. So I'm really interested to see where this goes. So far, I'm liking what I'm seeing. There's this spectral presence that is taking over the body of Catwoman, and it's a she. She basically she sees Batman and Superman as ripe for the picking. What that means exactly, I'm not so sure. But the end of the comic has our Superman and Batman of Earth 2 fighting, and then Jonathan Kent shows up, and of course in our main DC Earth 1, I guess is what they're calling it, maybe. Jonathan Kent is dead at the time of the stuff that we're reading with Superman. So it'd be interesting to see how our Superman interacts with the father of the Superman from Earth 2. Anyway, I kind of like that kind of stuff. So that was really good. Next up from Marvel, Hawkeye number 11. I only want to point this out because this is the story focuses on Lucky, aka Pizza Dog, and it's totally told from the dog's perspective, and you can see some of it. So these diagram-like ways in which the dog sees the world or experiences the world around him, and then you also get pages like this where, and you can't really see. So, but he interacts or is listening in on conversations between the human characters, and it's interesting to note that Lucky can pick out certain human words. So maybe it's the way in which the writer and artist is showing us that the dog understands certain concepts, perhaps. I don't think that's quite accurate, but that's kind of how I'm interpreting it. But I love all the, like I said, the little diagrams and how he relates, or how he, this person equals these things, and over here, this is the person. Again, here's potential spoiler. This is the roof guy. I can't remember his name now, but he ended up getting murdered in the last issue, and so you get him with the cross through it, a big question mark. So anyway, he's going through some. Anyway, he goes through his little adventure. It's also worth noting that the dog's name by his previous owners, the Bro guys, if you follow Hawkeye, who did not treat him very well, as you can see here. They kick him and beat him. So that's that Hawkeye rescued the dog many issues ago. Anyway, the dog's name from these guys is Arrow. Maybe a little too on the nose for this book, but I thought it was kind of funny. Lucky ends up meeting this other dog in the apartment complex, and they're kind of, there's this little cute little thing where I'll show you. It's just easier to show you these things, where the dog comes up. Oh, Lucky's in love. You see that on the left, and then the dog just walks in. Oh, heartbroken. And then you see the little on the right there. You see the broken heart mending again. I thought just those cute little things. Fraction and Aja are just firing in all cylinders with this book. It's a lovely story. There is a fight involving the bad guy that murdered the rooftop grill guy. Gil, was his name Gil or Grills? Did Hawkeye call him Grills? Man, my memory's so bad. Anyway, at the end, Clint, Hawkeye, and the other Hawkeye, what's her name? I read these books, honestly, I do. Anyway, they've been not getting along very well, and of course the female Hawkeye is appearing in Young Avengers. So I guess this is kind of leading up to her departure from New York and moving to, as it's shown here on the map, to California. And but what was really kind of heartbreaking in the end of this story is Lucky comes back to Clint after this little adventure, and wow, it's really bugging me that I can't remember. Kate Bishop. Thank you, Front Page, for catching me up on that. Wow. Kate is leaving, and then she just calls Lucky's name. Look at Clint's reaction. This is the bottom right of your screen there. Lucky walks out, and Clint's going, hey, and look at that close-up on his face, and then that little black panel there. Just brilliant. It just shows the human emotion very well. And we shall see what happens with Lucky next. And of course with the Hawkeyes. I'm kind of sad to see Kate Bishop leave the title. I was hoping they would do more with her in this, but like I said, she's in Young Avengers, so I guess that's not going to work out. All right. Pardon me. Like I said, my voice is not quite up there yet. It feels really scratchy and sounds pretty bad, I imagine. But anyway, here's from Image Comics, Lazarus from Greg Rucka. Michael Lark on art and letters. Colors by Santi Arcus. Anyway, so this book was announced at Emerald City Comic Con. I think it was this year. I can't remember if it was this year or last year. Anyway, they talked about it this last time, but it may have been announced the previous year. I can't remember. There's my bad memory again. Anyway, this is an interesting book. It's a bit of a dystopian future where the world now lies divided not amongst political or geographic boundaries, but amongst financial ones. Wealth is power, and that power rests with only a handful of families. And so this story follows... Oh, and the families are, as it says here, in each family, there is one person given the best they can offer, training and technology and assets, every scientific advantage. This person is named their family's sword and shield, their protector, their Lazarus. And I'll explain that reference in just a second. In the family Carlisle, the Lazarus is called Forever, sometimes referred to as Eve by her doctor. But Lazarus is, from biblical sense, is the guy that Jesus rose from the dead, right? And you have the Lazarus pit from Ra's al Ghul in the Batman comics. Well, in the very first scene of this comic, Forever is gunned down by these guys, but then she comes back to life. So whatever they've done to her, technologically, scientifically, whatever, she can withstand death-dealing wounds and come back. Anyway, but so this event happens where she goes to this food depository that's been broken into by these guys, takes care of them, and by that I mean she kills them. And it seems like she has a conscience. She doesn't think it was necessarily right that she had to kill these individuals, but she's told by her doctor and by her brother that these these things can't happen. There are rules. People can't just break in and steal things, etc., etc. So there are rules, but then there's what's right. And so she's starting to question these things. Her brother complains about it to the doctor. Basically, you need to fix this chemically, medically, so that she doesn't continue down that path, because, as he said, we don't want her to start thinking. They find out, however, that there's this, what do they call it? 1 second, sorry. There's a place called Harvest One. So there's this facility that the Carlisle family owns that there are people there that take care of the place. Well, certain information comes to light that someone in Harvest One let those guys at the beginning of the story in the food depository. And so the family has to make an example of this. They have to not allow these people, not just these particular people, but other people under their watch, their care, I guess, do this. So Forever has to find out who let these people in, and this older man basically volunteers to be killed to protect his family. And Forever knows he was not the one guilty of this crime, but it appears that she goes ahead and kills him because that's her duty. And at the end, the doctor asks her how she feels, and she says, "I feel fine." But as you can see here, in the bottom left there, that's not the face of someone who feels fine. So, a very interesting story. I like like I said, I like the dystopian future aspect of it. Although, how many dystopian future stories can we have? But that's a trope of science fiction, so I just have to go with it, and I'm okay with that. It's just I see a lot of these in comics. I like the world. I don't necessarily like the characters here yet, but Forever has the potential to be a character that I will like, just because even though she's doing these morally questionable things, she is questioning that, her actions and her place in the world. So I really like that aspect of it. And in the end of the comic, there is a many-page essay by Greg Rucka about how this comic came to be and all that. So that was good reading. I like getting the backstory of how something becomes a comic book. So I enjoyed that. Now we go back to something that I didn't really care for. This is the end of the Masks limited series from Dynamite. This is written by Chris Robertson with Dennis Calero doing the art and Alex Ross doing covers. Okay, so I got this because it has a bunch of Golden Age characters that are in the public domain. That Dynamite is, they've been doing, the series based on some of these characters. They have the Shadow, the Spider. Some of these characters have appeared in Alex Ross's, was it Project Superheroes, I believe. Here you've got the Green Hornet, and that series is just getting started, I believe, with Mark Waid writing it. You have Zorro, Miss Fury shows up. That's another title that they're doing. This story involves a bunch of thugs who basically take over New York, fascist thugs, fascist-like, I guess, thugs who take over New York, and then the idea is that the guy behind it would basically take over the country and then the world, and it turns out in the end, spoiler alert, the bad guy was a good guy at one point, and I think his name was the Clock or something to do with clocks. Anyway, I found this series, I like the idea of it, but I found the writing and maybe some of the art, the composition, the panel composition, I found it confusing at times to know where I was, who I was watching, whose actions I was watching on the page, because some of the characters look pretty much the same, and even though they're wearing different costumes, they look similar enough. And maybe I just got bored and I wasn't reading carefully enough. But by the end, I just didn't care. I think, and again, like Age of Ultron, like this could have been, 6 issues, and that would have been good enough. But I don't know. I don't recommend you pick this up in trade if you were waiting on it. But to each their own. Enough on that. And finally, here we go. Unwritten number 50. This is a title I've been loving. This is by Mike Carey and Peter Gross mostly. But here we get a crossover of sorts. You get the characters and situations of the Unwritten world crossing over with the Fables characters by Bill Willingham and Mark Buckingham. And indeed, Misters Willingham and Buckingham write and draw certain parts of this issue. As I understand it, though, like I said, it's a crossover of sorts because it's crossing over the universes of the characters, and it's a 5-part thing, but it's going to be totally within the Unwritten title, which is great. I love that. I would hate to have to go buy some Fables issues and the Unwritten. I don't like it when companies do that, although it happens all the time, and I do buy stuff. They're doing it with the Trinity War and the Justice League titles, and I'm getting all those different ones, but part 1's in this issue, in this one title, and part 2's in this other title. I hate that. How do I box that? How do I put that together in my collection? Anyway, back to this title, Unwritten. This is really good. I don't know if you follow this title. If you don't, it's too bad, because this is a story about stories. It's about writing. It's about storytelling and the power of storytelling and characters, and not just the characters in the title, but how characters come to be, how ideas come to be, and how power and flourish and die. It's very meta in that way, which I really, really like. This may be Mike Carey, some of the best writing that Mike Carey has done in a long time, probably since he was on Lucifer years ago, and to cross over to something that is as popular as Fables is. I'm hoping that more people will be drawn to the Unwritten and get more readers that way. I'm on board, have been since day one, but and it's reached 50 issues. I guess that's pretty good for something that I don't think is as well known, say, as Fables. But I've always worried about this title and the longevity of it, because I think there's so much that Carey could do. He's kept pretty well with the main characters, Tom Taylor, and a couple other characters throughout the run of the story, these 50 issues. But I think there's so much more he could do with this universe and explore. So I'm hoping that he'll start to do that after this run. The stuff hits the fan, though, at the end of this issue. So Tom Taylor is the main character here, like I said, if you're not familiar with it, and he's just coming out of this adventure where he's kind of his head's been messed with, so he's really unsure of where he is and what he's doing and why, even though he went into it knowing exactly. He has to repair or help heal the Leviathan, which is a creature that feeds on story and lives, as it says here on page 1, symbiotically with humanity. And Leviathan has been mortally wounded by one of the bad guys in the story, Pullman. And Tom is trying to heal Leviathan before... Basically, if Leviathan dies, so does humanity, because without story, without ideas, humanity can't survive. That's the premise here. And in doing so, Tom ends up in the Fables world, and through the machinations of the Fables witch, Tom ends up turning into his storybook counterpart, which is a Harry Potter ripoff, if you will. It makes it sound kind of bad, but it's an intentional homage that Carey's doing. You'd have to read the story, basically the title from the beginning, to get it, but it makes a lot of sense within the context of the story. But anyway, Tom turns into Tommy Taylor, which is this Harry Potter-like magician, and has a lot of power. because he can use magic in that way. So it'll be really interesting to see how Tommy Taylor is portrayed in this story, since Tom Taylor has long rejected that fictional persona of his, and wow, I don't know how much I should get into this, but Tom Taylor's father created Tommy Taylor to give power to Tom Taylor and himself within the context of the Unwritten world. But Tom Taylor has always hated the fact that he was the real life counterpart of this fictional, this well-beloved fictional character, and so the idea of reality and fiction blur with him. I'm not doing it justice. I really am not. You should go. You should go check out the trades of this title. You really should, and then catch up to the Unwritten Fables crossover. So there you go. Those are some of the titles I wanted to highlight from the second half of June of the comics that I read. Please let me know your thoughts on these titles or anything else that came out in the second half of June. I'd love to talk to you about that, or talk with you about those things. You can leave comments here where the video is posted, or you can email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I guess that's it. I'll be back at some point after I read the first half of July comics, and I'll be doing another video, I'm sure. But I'm getting my comics now shipped to me twice a month instead of weekly, so maybe even longer between these videos. I'm trying to not do that, trying to keep it more or less within a week of getting all my comics and hopefully reading them all within that week. Then I'll do a video. That's kind of my plan, but who knows? The surgery that I had threw that idea out the window for this review, but I'll try to do better. Just because I want to do it, not because I think you guys are waiting for these these reviews of mine, but it's because I want to do it and hopefully entertain and inform you as well. So anyway, enough talking about me. That's it. Thanks for watching. Go read some comics. Have some fun.